This show was made possible with the continued support of the Mio Media affiliates. Hello, my dear friends, and welcome to APCW Perspectives. And you know what? It was on this date, back in 2006, that I welcomed everyone to the very first APCW video. That's right. And who knew that some 17 years later, this show would have survived the UIGEA, Black Friday, the Trump administration, Sheldon Adelson, and my marriage? Well, those who know me best probably could have seen the marriage thing coming, but that's another topic of discussion. The point is that those things don't matter anymore because we're still here. We survived. However, the next threat to our industry might not be survivable, at least not in the United Kingdom. I am, of course, referring to these jackass affordability checks. Now, the king ding-dong at the UK Gambling Commission is Andy Rhodes. And old Andy, he doesn't like the term affordability checks. In fact, he hates the term affordability checks for some reason. Andy prefers what he seems to believe is the less offensive term, financial risk checks. So, keeping that in mind, and with respect to Mr. Rhodes' feelings, let's talk about these affordability checks, which, by the way, the British people hate. In fact, a recent survey by Right to Bet found that a majority of players in the UK say they will walk away from gambling altogether or drastically curtail their betting activity if affordability checks are implemented. The always ready to speak, but rarely mentally prepared to do so, Rhodes was quick to reply, surprise, surprise, saying that there are misunderstandings about affordability checks, although he didn't mention what those misunderstandings were or offer to clear them up. Rhodes also said that there are critics out there spreading deliberate misinformation about affordability checks, although he didn't point out what that misinformation was or offer to correct it. In other words, it was Andy Rhodes 101. Lots of talking, very little substance. You know, it used to puzzle me how Mr. Rhodes could have risen to such a position with such ass-backward thinking, or how someone so apparently ignorant of our industry could be put in such a position of power. I have a scary thought about this. We'll discuss it in the second half. Hey, welcome back. As we enter the second half of our program, I wanted to briefly mention last week's show, and specifically a comment about that show in the forum at GPWA. Now, I don't always reply to the comments that I see, but I do read them, including the one from last week, which correctly pointed out that when the UKGC fines operators, a portion of that money is supposed to support problem gambling programs. So perhaps that new mandatory levy we were discussing really is just double-dipped greed. I don't know. But if we return to the story from our first half, we'll find that in addition to the disgusting affordability checks that Andy Rhodes is so proud of, he's also blowing his own horn about shutting down the black market in the UK. You know, those sites that the Commission isn't making any money from. Well, that's the black market. Rhodes is proud as punch that the Commission has been making every effort to eliminate that black market. Of course, he says that it's overstated, so I don't know which side of his mouth he's really talking out of, the side that is proud for shutting it down or the side that says it's really not that big of a deal. At any rate, they're never going to shut down the black market completely. We know that. But what boggles my mind is that Rhodes is so ignorant of the Commission's culpability in driving Brits to these offshore sites with shit like his affordability checks. And the scary thought that I talked about in the first half of the show, here it is. What if all of this is not a farce? What if Rhodes really isn't just some kind of puppet? What if there's an underlying goal? People have been trying to shut down the online gambling industry and to pull back the reins on the gambling industry in the UK as a whole for a long time. So what if they realize they're never going to shut it down, but they can cripple it with things like affordability checks by making the industry so inconvenient, so invasive, so intrusive that people just refuse to participate? It's a thought. Might not be correct, but the thought occurred to me and I wanted to put it out there because in the event that I'm right, we find out 3 years from now, I can always point back to this show and go, yeah, see that was me. And if it's not correct, then we'll never speak of this incident again. So, I'm out of here. Be back next week though, you know, God willing. One side says it's overstated and the other side says we're fighting it and gonna eliminate it. Whatever. To be fair, anyone who knows me personally isn't too surprised that this show outlasted my marriage. But that's another matter. The point is, we're still here. We've survived.